One Piece chapter 1009. Now this chapter was a very solid chapter because I felt like each portion gave us some sort of conclusion, unlike with some other chapters where we get one-off things or just one side for a few panels that doesn't really lead anywhere except for setting up future moments. And we can see that this chapter is kind of a turning point for the Supernovas versus Kaido and Big Mom, and as you guys saw in this chapter, the worst generation succeeded in separating Big Mom and Kaido. Now my question beforehand was, even if they separate her, it's only a matter of time before she comes back. So I think a huge rush against Kaido is going to happen here. Kaido so far hasn't taken any lethal damage yet, but now that all 5 supernovas are focusing on him, I think he's going to get overwhelmed to an extent. But again, this is a Yonko, right? These are people that could fight legends like Whitebeard and Roger, so taking him down is no easy feat. So by default, Kaido should also show us why the Yonko title is what it is, especially given the fact that Kaido himself is revered to as the strongest. He has the strongest title even amongst the Yonkos, right? So we should see a lot of things from both sides. Now there's a lot to be said there, but let's start from the beginning as usual. But before we get into this, subscribe if you're new here, like the video. But back onto One Piece chapter 1009. Now the first portion of this chapter focused on the scabbards versus Orochi, in which he encounters them on his way around Onigashima. Now what's very interesting here is that this is the first time that he's actually seen the scabbards with his own eyes. Even though he knew that they were alive, he never actually saw them in person. Initially I thought he was going to take a much more calmer tone with the scabbards given his current predicament with him having no allies whatsoever, but I was wrong. Orochi truly doesn't understand his position in all of this, being at the very bottom of this entire thing. And in this chapter we actually see that take place, in which he tries to strike fear into the scabbards and taunt them in every seemingly possible way. But again, we just saw the scabbards take on Kaido, who is a entirely different beast, and even Kinemon said that we don't have any time to waste on someone like you. Orochi at this point in time is nothing to the scabbards, and we see that play out with each of them taking off one of his heads with a single strike. It's actually very funny because the battle started and ended in the same page. Again, it goes to show you that Orochi doesn't really have that much leverage anymore. He was someone that relied on other people's ability to gain the upper hand, and I think it's going to be that way moving forward, in which in some way, shape, or form he's going to either meet up with the CP0 and have some sort of team up or alliance with them. And I think it would come full circle back to the scene that we initially saw during the early stages of Wano with him and the Cypher Pole, maybe at the expense of the poneglyph that he has in the castle, and then maybe they would be willing to help him achieve something here. That's how I see things playing out for Orochi, because Orochi is absolutely nothing without someone else to help him, right? At this point, I think when Momo gets his power up, he can probably beat Orochi. You know, the Snake Slayer sword, Ame no Habakiri, makes a lot of sense. Now, interestingly enough, I think we're seeing another fake out here. Well, not necessarily a fake out, but Orochi is most likely not dead, even though all of his heads got taken out. Now, I haven't read too much into the Yamata no Orochi mythology, but I do know that in some folklores, you can only defeat the Hydra by taking off every single head. So what exactly is going on here with Orochi? I'm not sure. Does he actually have some sort of regeneration where his heads can just grow back? Because we see that Fukurokuju isn't too worried about Orochi's condition right now, which gives more credency that Orochi is still alive. So it seems like Orochi is going to be someone that's just going to keep coming back in little strides. That doesn't seem to be much at first, but eventually he's going to get some sort of major comeback, either with the help of the Cypher Pole or through other means. But interesting stuff for sure. Now we also get a long-awaited confrontation slash matchup that was teased for a very long time, ever since the beginning of Wano actually, and that was Fukurokuju versus Raizo. And if I remember correctly, it was once mentioned that these two were once rivals, like back in the day. And so again, a lot of us assumed that a battle between these two might eventually take place sooner or later, and I think here was the perfect placement. And from what I can see, there seems to be a pattern in which we're seeing the scabbards make their way towards Momo, but each time they encounter someone, a scabbard is left behind to take on said individual. So I think by the time Kinemon gets to Momo or Yamato or actually Kanjuro, he's going to be the only one there to face off against Kanjuro, because if the others were there, I would assume that they would help him. But again, this is something that Kinemon must do by himself. It's only natural that the leader deals with the traitor that betrayed them, right? So we have Nekomamushi, Okiku, Kamawatsu, and Denjiro left. I feel like these four will take on prominent enemies as they move forward towards Kanjuro and Momonosuke. We finally move on to the final portion of this chapter, which is the Supernovas against the Yonkos, and I was was not disappointed. Now, initially, I thought the plan to split them up was kind of far-fetched, just because it's not that easy to separate these guys, especially when Big Mom and Kaido are working in tandem, right? Again, kind of ties back into the Rocks days with them being on the same ship, so they have a lot of teamwork going on. But how Big Mom was separated makes a lot of sense, and it goes into the versatility of Paramecia. Big Mom and Kaido are heavy physical fighters, so there was no way that they were gonna physically separate them, but more so using tactics and versatility to make that happen. Now we start off with Kid talking to Law and saying if it was possible for him to use the shambles on one of the Yonkos, and Law basically confirmed that because their haki is too strong, it's not possible for them to be affected by his Devil-Fruit ability. And I think this was implied heavily during Law's battle against Virgo, and if anything, it also implies that Law's haki has to get on a higher level before his Devil-Fruit can affect people of higher caliber. And so I think this adds in more credency to the theory that Law's haki was stronger than Virgo's. Now Big Mom and Kaido charged for a combined attack, which was probably one of the most devastating physical attacks we've seen in the entire series in terms of sheer scale, in which they are able to create a shockwave that dwarfed the entirety of Onigashima. And what's even more impressive was Zoro, who was able to defend the other Supernovas against the attack for a few seconds, granted, which gave them the chance to shambles out of there, because we know that that attack was something that none of them could handle at that point in time. Again, we can see that Zoro for the most part is serving as a power blocker and also a power attacker, you know, given the nature of his fighting style. But on the other side, we also know that he's currently the Supernova with the lowest health bar right now, given the chain of events that happened in this chapter. Even though he blocked that attack to an extent, we can see that that had a massive toll on his body. So I'm starting to think that Zoro might be in a lot of trouble very soon. Now let's talk about Kaido versus Luffy here. Now initially I wasn't a big fan of the Kaido hybrid form, but after seeing it colored, it actually looks amazing. Again, I think it's a form that would benefit from closer shots. I think if Kaido had his own shot, not alongside Big Mom, that form might have looked a lot cooler. And I do think it's going to be a lot better once we do see it in the anime. Again, with the color and everything, the visuals are gonna be a lot better. Now, one thing I did notice with Kaido in this form is that he's more agile. He seems to be moving a lot more than usual. Instead of taking the usual, I'm going to tank this attack and attack back, Kaido seems to be flying around, dodging attacks. Again, he seems to be dodging more so because Luffy has Rio right now, which makes a lot of sense, as Rio is the only thing that works on him at this point in time. He also had this crazy attack that he landed on Luffy, Ragnarok, which Luffy seemingly blocked, but we're still unsure of Luffy's condition after the fact because we cut away. But I would imagine that Luffy took a lot of damage from that attack, even though he blocked with armament haki, possibly Rio, we're not sure. But again, I'm liking Kaido's combat style a lot more as the battle progresses, and I think he has a lot more to show now, given that he's in this new form, a combination of both the beast form and his human form, so it's merged into one. And I think we're going to see a lot of new things that we wouldn't expect from any Zoan user in the series, possibly an awakening as well. Now we end off the chapter with an epic combination team effort between Zoro, Kid, Law, and Killer, in which they are able to get rid of Big Mom's homies. First, we had Kid create this metal box to imprison Zeus, which was very essential to this whole plan because Zeus is responsible for Big Mom's mobility around the battlefield, and because she's flying, it really gives them a hard time to attack Big Mom. So that taken care of was very essential. We have Zoro take care of Prometheus by slashing him several times to avoid him regenerating, and Killer deal with Napoleon. And this eventually leaves Big Mom homieless, right? And this gave the Supernovas the chance to get rid of her. Kid served as bait in order to lure her in, to him then using his abilities to repel her into the air, giving Law the chance to shamble Zoro to knock her off the island. And this was a very epic combination between all of them. Kid, I think, is showing a lot more now, and given the fact that Big Mom is going to be out of the picture, I think this is where he actually tries to put in more effort, because I'm not sure if Luffy is a-okay from that attack, so Kid might have to step in here. Law being the mastermind as always, his ability is going to be very essential towards the later parts of this battle, and Killer has also shown his own worth. And so with Big Mom out of the picture temporarily, because we know that she's going to come back somehow, some way, she can easily make more homies to make her way back up, but that would require time, and time that the Supernovas will use to whittle down Kaido as much as they can. Zoro and possibly Luffy seems to be in critical condition right now, so even though they got rid of Big Mom, it didn't come without a cost, as it should, right? Because we're dealing with Yonkos here, so that should be expected. But overall, this was a very solid chapter. I'm looking forward to how they deal with Kaido now, given given that Big Mom is out of the field. It's going to be interesting how this 1v5 is going to happen now, with them having all the focus towards Kaido right now. But then again, Kaido hasn't gone all out yet, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Comment down below what you guys think. I would appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. It is Pharaoh, and I will see you folks later. Peace.